So now, without further ado, we should start with the panel. Now we are all here, right? And Roberto was
still missing.
Still
missing John. His computer crashed, so he's trying to connect. I'm helping him out. Anyway, so let's start with what we have at this time, and then John can get in. So I will we and Oleg are going to moderate this panel. To start the discussion, what I would like to know is, and actually I think all the viewers that are actually seeing it also would like to know, what exactly is MicroProfile, especially because it's something that only came up like a few months ago. Probably people haven't heard about that yet. So who wants to tell us on what MicroProfile actually is?
That's the wrong kind of statement.
Right. Yeah.
Let's do David. David, you're responsible for answering this one.
Sure. Well, I think that there's been, kind of a need, I think, for all of us to get together and collaborate in a way that is a little bit looser than what we've typically done together in the standards space. I think people will have the mistaken impression that this is effectively a competing standard when in fact it's the opposite. Our intentions are to feed the standards. I'll give a couple examples of things that we've actually tried to do in the standard space over the last several years, and then decided that it wasn't the right time to standardize things. So, for example, in EE6, we discussed whether or not we should have an embedded version of EE, something that bootstrapped from the public static void main. The conversation came up because we were adding an embeddable EJB container API to EJB 3.1. We thought, should we do one for the whole platform? I think the consensus at that time was we're not ready to standardize that. And then that came up again in EE7. So how about now? Are we ready to standardize what would look like to bootstrap a server in a plain Java VM with public static void main being owned by the user? And again, it wasn't really the right time to do it. Not enough people had experience in the space to make a confident call, what that API should look like. And because once you make a choice, you have to live with it for 10, 20 years. And I think when standards make a guess, you get things like CMP. When they standardize something that's based on maturity, you get JPA. And so there's a lot of things in the microservices space that really need to just be explored before they can ever really be effectively standardized. And we've kind of come together to do that kind of exploration. And so, what MicroProfile is basically just a place where we can do that kind of exploration together to make sure that we're iterating faster, learning lessons sooner, and it's kind of a fail-fast mentality. So it's a little bit different than standardization, which is we know the answers. Here's the perfect one. This is going to last for 20 years. I think we've historically gone a little bit slow because we've lacked this kind of innovative arm of the pre-standardization type of world. So that's sort of a high level what it means to me, and a lot of us, technically there's a lot of things that we'd like to achieve, but it's really sort of a collaborative pre-standardization effort in hopes to feed the standards quicker, more effectively, make faster moves with more confidence. I don't know what other people would like to add or subtract from that definition.
Yeah, I'll go next. This is Kevin. And I agree with David. I mean, the thing that we want to emphasize, and this came up at Java 1 several times, is that we actually want to work with the JCP and Oracle to feed whatever we learn from this experimentation and learning, to feed it back into the process so that eventually it could become part of a Java EE standard. And we are not trying to compete against Oracle. We have invited Oracle to participate. So far, I mean, at least they are talking, and we talked with several of them at Java 1. And we're from a technology viewpoint, I think, the technologists, the engineers, we're all kind of in agreement, but we need to, smooth out some of the issues with working in this bring up mentality, this experimental area, and then feed it into the JCP, because we've never had anything like that for the JCP before. So that's why this is different, and to be able to work within that group, that construct, it's going to take some effort.
Great.
John, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to apologize for everyone. Plugin and browser issues, compatibility issues. So it took 2 reboots, but I'm here. Just a quick introduction. I don't know, folks, did folks do introductions already?
Yeah, you can do it.
Hi.
Okay, really quick. Hey, John Klingen here, Red Hat, product manager and ex-Java EE PM at Oracle. There, that was quick. So, I mean, I think a lot of what I would say would just kind of reiterate what I've heard David and Kevin say. This is really a what's the word I'm looking for? It's an alignment thing where there's benefits to doing iteration and innovation outside of a standards organization, and then when we think it's ready, when we think what we're doing is mature enough, then it's time to move it over to the JCP and think about standardization. So, I mean, well stated, and I'll just reiterate.
Yeah, awesome. So another thing that I would like to know is the MicroProfile is an initiative that's being launched by several companies like Red Hat, Tommy Tribe, IBM, Payara, and even brought together some of the JAGs around the world, like SoJava from Brazil and the London Java community from the UK. So yep. How come all these organizations came together to work on this joint effort for the MicroProfile?
Well, I think some of it came about because of Oracle's lack of participation on the Java EE specs. I mean, late last fall or early last fall, they kind of pulled back some of their resources, and it kind of left a void. And there were a few groups that got started up. One of them was Java EE Guardians with Reza. And then there was the Java EE.io group, and then that kind of evolved into the MicroProfile.io group. And I think, everyone was just trying to fill that void and trying to continue the Java EE story without Oracle's assistance at that point. Right before Java 1 this year, it seems like Oracle kind of woke up, and they're pushing Java EE forward again, which is very positive. We want them to do that. We like what's being defined for Java EE 8, but we still feel that the work that we started with the MicroProfile is something that still needs to be continued and pushed into the Java EE platform or architecture. So that's one of the reasons why we got started.
And I'd like to hear from the Java user groups too.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't got the London JAG or the Brazil with us for some reason. They were not able to join.
Oh.
Yeah, and I'll kind of apologize on that front. The time is just really tough for the JAG members to make it because it's, for example, midnight in the UK, right? So, kind of apologies there. But one thing I will say is that, we were, the vendors and even non-vendors, right, community projects were off investigating how to do microservices with, traditional Java EE technologies, right? So as a product manager for Wildfly Swarm at Red Hat, right, we were approaching it one way, and going down the list with Pyara, Tommy E, IBM, Hammock, Atos is another one in the community. So we're off doing these things different ways, which is really cool because it's innovation. But there's probably a lot of collaboration that we can do where we think there's really good alignment. Right, and I think one of the nice ideas here is it gives developers, doing Java EE microservices a place to go, right? And that's microprofile.io. And while we all differ kind of in implementation, we have some alignment, right? So that's just an idea, a thought there.
Yeah, and I just would like to just kind of expand on some of the statements in the sense that, definitely this kind of got triggered off into the vacuum that was there, from Oracle pulling resources out. To my observation, their heart is in the right place, and they have an aggressive timeline, and I think something like this can really only help that. Because you got to learn a lot of lessons really quickly before you really know how to standardize something. So I think there's natural synergy, and I think it's just a matter of time before everything gets worked out. We've always wanted to be an adjunct of the standardization process, so I think that things are pointing in the right direction.
Awesome. So another thing that I would like to know is, since it's like a different initiative that's going on, do you believe that this will become a JSR at some point and be integrated in the Java community process? Do you even think that it will be required? Or if not, how are you going to manage the project in an organization point of view? Kevin?
Yeah, who wants to start? Okay, so one of the things that we presented at the luncheon at Java 1, we had some introductory charts that might have been good to show for this group as well. But one of the things that we do plan to do is become part of the Eclipse Foundation. We want to support the guidance of a foundation for this effort. And so that's one of the things that we are already working on. We've already approached the Eclipse board. We have not submitted the proposal yet, but it's getting close. Along with that, we are looking at using the Apache license for all of our artifacts, whether it's a spec, if we do a reference implementation, a test suite, samples, whatever, all of that would be licensed under Apache. And the idea is that eventually what we would produce, we would like to submit JSRs into the JCP process. We're actually already talking about preparing one for that. Of course, we don't have it ready yet. We need the foundation in place and stuff like that, but we are already working towards that end. Anybody else want to add to that?
Someone else wants to add something else? Maybe Fabio, John?
Nope. I'll add that the other advantage of going to an existing foundation as opposed to just kind of creating our own is that it really lets us move more quickly, right? We're using an established foundation with established processes. The Eclipse Foundation accepts the Apache license. There's really a lot of, I think, good alignment there. And we really want to begin moving as quickly as possible towards just moving the microprofile itself forward, right? So developers can start doing Java EE, microservices with the microprofile.
I think David wanted to add something else.
No,
right?
I would just echo. I think everything has been said is straight on. The motivation to going to foundation is obviously there's a lot of benefits. We get to kind of be a little bit more fair. I think at this point it would be kind of awkward for us to say, oh, IBM owns MicroProfile, or Red Hat owns MicroProfile, or Tommy Tribe owns MicroProfile. It really should be kind of a community-led effort, the way it started, and continue going down that path. You know, and I think that that could be a really good addition to the way that things are done. You know, if at one point, you know, one of us wanted to bow out for a round, the rest of the community can continue to go. We can come back to the table at any moment. So there's an inherent goodness about having a foundation. I don't think that if you carry the torch for 15 years and you want to leave for a while, you should be villainized. I think that should be okay. And an open source foundation is inherently about that. You know, places like the Apache Software Foundation are all about making communities that can survive the loss of any one particular member. And it should be okay for that to happen, you know? I'm firmly on board that anybody should be able to follow their commercial motivations anywhere that they want to take them. And if there's a good community and a foundation backing it, then, you know, there's no harm, no foul, and everybody can continue to move forward. And it's a good thing that you can build with a foundation in those regards.
So
Great.
One other thing I want to add to that, you can't innovate and standardize at the same time. The foundation and all the support structure behind it is going to help us get to a point where we have something creative enough, something that is common enough where everyone can leverage it. If we try to standardize too early, we're going to get into a situation where there isn't enough to work from.
It's the CMP thing all over again. You know, anytime we've historically tried to rush something to market, you know, CMP, JAXRS, it's inherently flawed in some way, and then we have to kind of try and supersede it and obsolete it, support both for this awkward period of time, and then, you know, well, it holds us all back, right? If we wait just a while longer, or we start sooner and collaborate sooner before we actually have to set something in stone, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, just to reiterate that point, David, I mean, that, you know, we're living with those past mistakes forever. And so if we standardize something too quickly, we have to live with it. It's a standard. We can't just throw it out. I mean, we've got a full deprecation process that takes years to even be able to mark it as deprecated, let alone remove it.
Yeah, fully agreed.
Okay, so another thing that I heard you guys mention was one of the reasons you came up with a MicroProfile was the lack of movement from Oracle. In the last few weeks, or actually last week on Java 1, we actually heard Oracle announcing plans for Java EE8 and actually Java EE9 as well. So do you believe that going with the MicroProfile actually pushes Oracle to move things forward as well? Also, and a second part of the question is, so Oracle is not involved in MicroProfile. Do you have any word from Oracle that they want to get involved as well?
Yeah, this is John. So Oracle has been formally invited to join the MicroProfile, right? And I suspect they're discussing it. And from a Red Hat perspective, you know, we're definitely behind Java EE and Java EE8 in terms of the roadmap and what was showed at Java 1. With Java EE9, it becomes a little bit more of a question mark because it's pretty ambitious, both in terms of feature function as well as time frame. And, you know, they have certain things in there, for example, like CQRS and event sourcing and so on that, you know, I think would be a great place to innovate and try things out in the context of MicroProfile before trying to standardize it. right? So I think some details need to be worked out as it relates to Java EE 9. Not that we don't want to do it, right? But I think some details need to be worked out in terms of that part of the roadmap. I don't know if others have thoughts.
I would say the 8 roadmap looks pretty solid, and I think it's great. There's a lot of stuff on there that I've absolutely been dying for quite a long time. So thunderous applause on really a lot of that. And then if you look at the aggressive stuff that's in 9, I think it just really drives home that a lot of exploration, a lot of trial and error needs to happen in advance of us wanting to standardize some of those things. So I think this might be a happy mistake. This kind of pre-standardization collaboration effort can really help cement what we do in 9. If we play our cards right, we might come up with something that's not just a guess, and not that I'm saying that what's there is a guess, but I think we have a very good chance to flush out a lot of those ideas to make something that is like what's been proposed as 9 attainable sooner, or in the time that's referenced there. I mean, there's a lot of exploration that should happen to get something like that. And I think one of the interesting things, which has been in a kind of something that popped up, is the concept of a reference architecture that we've all been kind of standing up our own servers. Instead of having one app, which we would normally do, have one app that implements a couple APIs, and then we make sure that the app is portable. We've all decided, well, if we're gonna show microservices, let's actually each of us write a service, and there are so far they're like 4 services, and they all work together. And so there are 4 microservices written on 4 different servers or containers or whatever trendy word you want to come up with them nowadays. And they all have to work together to do something. And we have to now solve the problems that are near there, like how do we pass security context? How do these things discover each other? If there's configuration involved in configuring the app, and I swap the server out, what does that look like? And so I think it's a healthy petri dish for those things to be explored, and that can really only fuel what we want to do with the bigger roadmap. So that's what I would say. I think that there's some very natural alignment with making what we want, or what we would want to do as a community with 9, happen sooner, more stably.
That's a new word.
So when you're also saying that, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to add one quick thing. If you go to glassfish.org/survey, you can actually take the Java EE survey that Oracle has put out. And the last question is really just an open text box, right? So if you think what we're doing here with MicroProfile provides a valid approach, definitely add that into the text box, right? Say, we think innovating, in kind of a more community manner, outside of a standards organization, take a look at MicroProfile and join, right? Thanks.
Yes, so actually, how can people join MicroProfile?
Yeah, so if you go to microprofile.io, we're getting a bad echo all of a sudden. Is there any way to correct that?
We did get an echo. I'm trying to figure out who is responsible for that.
If we all mute, this might go away.
Yeah, we can try that.
Seems fine now.
Kevin?
Okay. So from the microprofile.io site, up in the upper right-hand corner, there's a button to join the conversation or something to that effect. And we have a Google group that you can join. You don't need an invite or anything. You just join, and then you can participate in any of the forum discussions that are happening. I mean, right now, we probably got, I don't know, 2 dozen different topics that are being discussed right now. And you can, pick the ones you're interested in and participate, or just monitor it. I'm sure that there's many people that are, just out there curious and monitoring what's happening. But we do have a wide variety of people participating. Not only the ones here on this panel, we've got several individuals throughout the industry that are participating on, their favorite topics and, what they are trying to promote. As an example, one of the things that, David mentioned earlier about the security context, there's another area that Greg Luck is very interested in, and that's somehow getting JCache into the microprofile definition. And so he has started a couple of forum discussions to talk about how to get, JCache properly integrated. And he is off with Pyara and doing some experimentation, and they're reporting their results. And part of that is we are defining our process at the same time, because we are a new group and we're trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to feed all these things in? We did have a very good BOF at Java 1 where we got some good ideas on how we wanted to go forward with our process, but I'm sure we're going to be learning along the way. I mean, we come up with ideas, we'll try them, and if we need to polish or adjust the process, then we'll go ahead and do it. But it's a very open community with a lot of participation.
Yes, so one of the actual things that I also saw was that you guys, only after 3 months of work, you came up with the 1.0 release, right? Last week, right? On Java 1 week. So can you guys tell us what are you including in this 1.0 release? Maybe Fabio?
Yeah.
Oh, Fabio, we cannot hear you.
Fabio, you're muted.
I think he's not muted, but the microphone doesn't actually work. So we did an audio check earlier, and it didn't work. We just sort of walked by.
Oh.
That's unfortunate. Does anyone else want to respond to the question?
Maybe I can take it. So our first pass was just JAXRS, CDI, and JSON-P. A really simple REST application that you can build, get a response from, and do some dependency injection. This is tested with a sample application that can be deployed using Archillion to a number of these containers, using just basic URL injection to make requests against it to verify the responses. Even the sample applications that were put together for the conference apps are really just building on that with maybe some persistence layer, which has been, I think, identified as one of the next areas we have to tackle as far as actually storing data and pulling data out of a database or NoSQL store before we can make this really fully useful to end users.
Yeah, and one of other things that I saw in the code is that you actually already implementing the microprofile, all the vendors. So you did it in a way that you implement each service, or you have like 4 different services for each vendor, and then you provide your own unique way to provide that microservice approach, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's, yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
Oh, I waited a little bit for someone else to talk before I did. So from a WebSphere Liberty perspective, we did we started working on the MicroProfile feature definition right after we, it was kind of, defined, I guess, back at DevNation. And so from a Liberty perspective, we have a MicroProfile 1.0, we call it a convenience feature, because really all that it's doing, right now is that we're pulling in the 3 Java EE7 features that John had mentioned earlier. But what this does is that it makes it easy from a Liberty perspective, is that a user that wants to use MicroProfile, they would just specify the MicroProfile 1.0 feature, and they automatically get the 3 features that we have defined. And then now I know each of us had a little bit different as far as how we were releasing this. We ended up putting it out as part of our fix pack that came out the Friday before Java 1. So our 16.003 fix pack for Liberty contains the MicroProfile feature, and it is fully supported in a production environment if a customer so choose to use it.
Yeah, John here. So from a Wildfly Swarm perspective, you can just use MicroProfile today by just adding a Maven dependency, right, to your project and MicroProfile. And DevNation was back in June, so we've basically defined and moved forward with MicroProfile, getting to a 1.0 release with many implementations in this span of 3 months. So it moved pretty quickly, right? So just FYI there, right? So we will be adding more functionality as time goes on, but we intentionally started small because we didn't want to go define this platform without having community input, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I think that was key. Like from the moment that those 3 technologies were announced, people were like, well, why not this and why not that? And why not X and why not Y? And almost mad when they say it, like, oh, I can't believe it. Why not blah? And it's like, because the intent was to give you the opportunity to say, why not blah? So we can have a discussion as a community of what blah should be, what X, Y, and Z should be. So it was intentionally the most conservative list of technologies possible, because once you add something and you can't remove it, or actually you can, because we aren't a standard. So, but the intent is to try and still be a fairly, stable-ish. But yeah, so the intent was there to allow lots of room for feedback in terms of what people think should be there or not there. And so it's been neat to see Greg Lux of the world come to the table and say, I think this should be added. And there's a sample architecture there, which I think Roberta kind of hit upon, which is kind of the unique way that things are put together. I really truly think that seeing a demo run with 4 different servers at the same time is really kind of awesome. And geez, I look at that and I think to myself, geez, where have you been all my life? That's really cool. I'm really excited about the stuff that can shake out from that kind of collaboration. I think there's an interesting point, that we've all sort of done this kind of collaboration in our own spaces, but this is the first time we're doing it together in terms of, we've done this kind of collaboration before standardization in our own spots, and we bring things to the center when they're finished, but this is the first time we're sort of exploring ideas from the moment of inception, before any code's written, or very little code, just to see what's happening. So I think it's neat. I think users have to figure out how to use all of our stuff together, right? So when I walk into an environment, of course, we support all the Tommy stuff. And when someone says, I got a Liberty problem, we say, go talk to IBM, and the same thing there. And so this is the first time we're all dealing with each other's stuff together. Kind of an interesting thing. I think good things will shake out of that because we're actually walking in the shoes of what most architects have to live with. They got to live with a bunch of servers that are various kinds, and now we have to do that. And I think that's a nice little twist that shouldn't go unnoticed and kind of has to have blinking lights around it. It's a new thing. It's worthwhile. Simple things like how to do security across the different servers are going to shake out of this, and I think it's a win. All from a change of approach.
Yeah, and I have a couple of quick points to add to that. First of all, during the BOF at Java 1, Phil Webb attended, and from Pivotal, he's one of the main guys behind Springboot, and where he saw value is interoperating with MicroProfile implementations, right? And just the way that David explained. So while we're talking about running implementations of the MicroProfile, we're also thinking about how does the MicroProfile interoperate with other ecosystems, whether it's the Spring Framework, Node.js, right? We're thinking not just internally, but also looking outside. And the last quick point is the demo that we have, someone took kind of ownership of each service in the demo, but that doesn't mean that each service only runs on implementation X, right? The idea is that every service will run on every implementation. So I just thought I would point that out.
Yeah, it's a good call out. It's a good call out. And yeah, so back to the point of the interoperable concept, I think what sort of shook out of the Wednesday BOF, which was, do we need to have two concepts? One is sort of like MicroProfile interoperable, and that would basically say that something that is a MicroProfile thing can talk to another thing that's MicroProfile interoperable because it can take a JOT that has these two fields in it and can verify that JOT with a public key, stuff like that. And then that might, sort of make two tiers. One where there's a bunch of MicroProfile interoperable layer, which could be where the Spring Boots and the Node.jses and those types of things live. All of those things would all those things would live in that space. And then where we start to define things inside the JVM, that would be like another layer on top. And that would be like, MicroProfile, compatible or some other word, But basically, there's the life inside the process and the life between the processes. And that's kind of two different tiers. The value of defining things at this level is that, if you have a security gateway or something, well, if I send a JOT like this, it's going to work with every MicroProfile interoperable stack. And it could bring some good things into the mix. It starts to make all these other things like nodes that don't talk to the Akka stacks and that they don't talk to each other and work their stuff out, right? So if we do that, I think that we start to create a nice strong ecosystem where even if we're not agreeing on the actual Java call, because maybe there's no Java at all in the other VM, we are at least agreeing about how we're going to talk to each other on the wire. And there's a certain amount of beauty in that from an architectural perspective, because I don't think an architect really cares about what Java call is being made inside the process. They're looking at an increasingly larger quantity of microservices, and their cares are at this level, not in this level. And so there's probably maybe even a bigger value in coming up with a MicroProfile interoperable concept than worrying about the calls inside the JVM. It's kind of a provocative thing I said there at the end, so people can go ahead and challenge that, trash me. Go ahead.
So I think one of the important things to point out in addition to what David's been talking, we haven't talked at all about how your application runs. If you think back to Java EE, you have this massive app server. It's going to have a number of services provided on it, a number of configurations that you can do. We haven't specified any of that yet. We haven't talked through what any of that looked like, or do we even need to standardize on it? So far, we've talked about a number of services, a number of features that are available to an application leveraging MicroProfile. And keeping in that sense, we don't have to tie ourselves to any deployment technology, any management or maintenance technology either. Makes it much more interoperable and makes it more feature-centric, which is really what developers are looking for these days.
Great. Does anyone else have anything to add to that?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Sure.
Awesome. Welcome,
yeah.
Fabio.
I had to reboot my station. I don't know, Windows playing pranks on me. Okay, just to add to anything that guys already have said, I think that considering that MicroProfile is based on this Java EE specifications that have already a lot of work on, and they have been evolving from many standards and many discussions across either the JCP and the community. This is something that is beneficial for developers because there is a lot of knowledge accumulated around CDI, JAXRS, JSONB, JCache, or whatever other API we decide to include into MicroProfile. And this is something that, in my opinion, is something that should not be wasted. There are a lot of years of testing, research, discussions. Many good developers around the world have worked on specific development patterns on how to use these APIs and improve their enterprise applications. And since I'm a former developer as well, and this is something amazing because I've been on that side of the discussion of Java EE versus Spring, and many times the issue in favor of Spring is this microservices friendly architecture or friendly set of libraries, and this is something that now we want to bridge into the Java EE because these are APIs that are very helpful for developers, and I think that we can get there to the point that we can, let's not say compete with Spring or the entire Spring framework ecosystem, but reach these microservices practices, these, let's say, benefits that many other developers have worked around and allow them to live in that same paradise, to say that.
Awesome. So to do like a really quick recap, we have a new release, or actually the first release that you made last week, which includes JSON, JAXRS, and CDI, right? So, and you also mentioned that you're now discussing which are going to include next, and I actually was checking the mailing list, and there is lots of discussion. Oh, why don't we include JPA, or why don't we include? I even saw one for JCache, another one for batch. So, what are your plans for the next release? What are you guys planning to include on the next release, and when are you planning to do the next release? Kevin?
Yeah, I had to unmute here. Okay, so we have not defined our next release. That is something that we need to do, but we are looking to try to come up with kind of a timed release. We would like to have something maybe by the end of this year. If not by the end of this year, it would be early next year. But the idea is to have the releases defined in short intervals so that if there are topics that are coming up to be included and they aren't quite ready, then we know that there's another train coming immediately afterwards, and we can continue the discussions for the next release. So one of the things that we're going to be keen off of or promoting is the idea of use cases, and really refining and defining valid use cases that are applicable across many of the disciplines, and trying to flesh out the issues that are related to that. I mean, getting back to to David's favorite topic with the JWT. I mean, if that is the use case that we, decide on, we're going to flesh that out completely as one unit before we move on to the next one. So instead of having 4 or 5 different work groups off working on different aspects and then trying to fit these all together, at the last minute for the next release, we want to focus on 1, maybe 2 things total for a given release and make sure that they are completely fleshed out. So yeah, we don't have the next release defined. We can't tell you exactly when it is. We can't tell you the exact content of it because we still need to work through that.
Yeah, and to add to that, I tried to lay out a roadmap in a kind of our canonical presentation, our slide deck, which hopefully, I think I created the link. It's bit.ly, right? bit.ly/microprofile presentation, all one word, right? And I stuck a slide in there that basically says, 2 releases next year, and that's kind of a, unofficial, informal thing, but it just definitely wants to show that we want to move pretty quickly, and maybe we'll even be able to do better than that. I also think that this is going to be a little bit of a learning experience, right? So the first approach is what Kevin just talked to, right? We're going to try and focus on one thing and just drive it home, and we'll evolve, right? If that works, we'll continue forward. If not, we might look for a slightly different approach, right? But this is our first cut at it, right? With technically our second, right? Because 1.0 has been released. So, but in terms of new functionality, it's our first cut at it, and so it's going to be a little bit of a learning experience. But if you hop on the Google group, help us out.
Yeah, I was just going to echo that. There's no concrete answer to what is next because it's being discussed on the community mailing list. So if there was a concrete answer of what was next, and we're discussing it on the mailing list as if it wasn't decided, I think they would have a disconnect. So yeah, it's still an open topic, which is why we're seeing everything out there. I think in terms of some of the stuff that's been discussed in terms of how we decide, we sort of decided, leaning towards a time-boxed approach where there's a period of time where everyone can just throw a bunch of ideas in the pile, and then we argue about which one it should be, and then we pick one out and say, all right, the one we're doing, and then get on the bus and let's just bang that one out. And then some weeks or so prior to the next iteration starting, we would have another everyone throw all the ideas in the center, and we'll just duke out which one should be the next one we tackle. So if it works, we'll continue to do it. If it doesn't, we'll adapt. But that's the intent, is definitely to try and get everybody focused on the same thing at the same time. Because if you put 14 topics on a table and you got 14 people, you'll have 14 people doing different things at the same time, and the odds of them lining up are going to be pretty rare. So it's sort of a disciplinary thing, to see if we can just at least get one thing done. And in the hands of people. I think you kind of have to be sensitive in today's age that, whether or not we take 3 months or 1 year to decide something, architects who are planning their next bit of major, functionality, they won't wait. They got to make a decision, based upon what we've got out there now. And so if we can move things forward incrementally, I think that there's value in that.
Okay, so we almost out of time. I only have one question left, probably the most hardest question for you guys. Let's see. So there are other technologies around, and some of them were already mentioned here, like Springboot. Me as a developer, why should I pick MicroProfile over Springboot? Or why don't you guys thought about supporting or actually doing something with Spring Boot and came up with your own implementations. What are your thoughts on that, Kevin?
Well, I'll let someone else go first this time. If they want.
Okay. The hardest question. Yeah, so let's John take it then.
Wait, which John?
You. Yeah, sorry, I have two Johns. So John Klingon. Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. I apologize. I had to turn off my my video because it's sucking the life out of my laptop. Where I think we're coming from is right. There were, well, in the Java space, it seems like Dropwizard kind of kicked off this whole microservices, right? Single, single jar file kind of approach, right? The idea of doing microservices with Java.
Jetty.
Yeah, Jetty. Okay.
Just giving props.
There you go. But it's interesting because the pivotal guys give a hat tip to the Dropwizard guys, and okay, perhaps the Dropwizard guys give a hat tip to the Jetty guys, right? But the interesting thing is that we're all different communities, right? And the question almost is today, why do you choose Spring over Java EE, or vice versa, or Dropwizard or Node, right? We're coming from a starting point where we have all already invested in Java EE, right? So we've got lots of experience. We may even have infrastructure set up to do monitoring, managing, business processes, operational processes built around enterprise Java, but Java EE as well. So there's a lot of things that we want to leverage. So from my perspective, we're going to hat tip everyone else that has kind of blazed the path before us. But we're starting from a different point, and that is the Java EE community. That's kind of how I see it.
Yeah, and I guess I would like to say, from the time that I was a wee tiny little J2EE hacker, I've dreamt of bringing the Spring people into the world that, into the EE space in some way. That will be my ultimate, we have achieved something awesome moment. I love to see Phil show up to the MicroProfile events. And I would love to find some way to get Spring Boot involved in the stuff that's happening, not because I think Spring Boot is awful. Obviously, if I thought it was terrible, why would we why would we want their participation? There's great stuff there. The various kinds of ecosystems that we have around us, they feed each other like crazy. And, you couldn't have Spring without EE, and you couldn't have EE without Spring. And the Dropwizards people are always leveraging lots of great stuff. So I think this is an opportunity for us to all kind of, meet in the middle in some kind of neutral ground. And it does seem to be happening. It's fantastic. Yes,
so I guess we're out of time for this session. I would like to thank all the panelists that we have over here. David, Fabio, John, and Kevin. And of course, Oleg, it's also there to help us out. So thank you very much for joining our VJAG 24. So if anyone else wants to know more about MicroProfile, just go to microprofile.io. You're able to get all the information you need from the website. And well, that's it, I guess. So thank you so much for joining, guys, and see you next time.
From my side, also a massive thanks to all of you for the information, for taking time to join us. I hope that you can stay a little bit longer and maybe hang out in the RC if people have additional questions. Thank you massively, Roberto. You've been a wonderful host for the panel. And if you have any more questions, just ping anyone on the panel. They're amazing experts, and they will be happy to share more information about this. So the next thing that we should do, we should thank Tommy Tribe for sponsoring this session. It was an amazing support for VJAG24. And another sponsor of every session at Virtual JAG24 is JetBrains, and they provide an IntelliJ IDEA license to a one-person draft. So the winner for this session is Lime Jolly, and we'll contact you, Lime, and you'll be a happy user of JetBrains technology. Now, without further ado, we should wrap this up. Thank you guys again. It's been a pleasure. See you in the internets. It has been Virtual JAG24, session 18.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.